Right at the time of recording, Snarling Badger have released their fourth major game. Now, the channel started with this one. This is the game that brought me back into the hobby after a long time away because of real life. I do have a series of videos on this. They are not the best quality because I didn't have a lot of experience and equipment back in those days, but respect to Snarling Badger for bringing me back. We then had Space Station Zero, which I've been meaning to do a series for. And then we had Majestic 13, which again, I've been meaning to do a series for. But now, we've got Deth Wizards. A skirmish game, where you play a warband of a Necromancer and his Undead Minions. Now, I thought that the class of Necromancer that deals with spirits sounded rather nice. The Spirit Caller. However, when I checked my mountain of miniatures, I didn't have a lot of kind of spirit or ghost models. So, I went printing. And I printed a few. Let's have a look. So, like I say, I do have some Necromancer figures, some old GW ones. I think I've also got some Necromancers from Heresy miniatures. But I thought, you know what? I'm going to be printing out a bunch of Spirit Undead. I can print out a new Necromancer, why the heck not? And I'm going to be using the same range, and therefore they're all going to scale up very nicely. And what we've got here, all these miniatures, spirits and everything else, these are all from Bestiarum. Very dark in nature, very grim. I've also got some, well, I had some sort of spare space on the build plates. I kind of made a bit of scattered terrain as well to go for the game. Let's start with the Necromancer himself. Again, all these miniatures are Bestiarum, and this is the Dread Necromancer. And this is from the Dead Maya set from Bestiarum. Now, remember what I said about the thin bits? Look, you know those skulls ain't going to stay on there for very long, don't you? But this is a really nice mini. Comes with his own base that he sort of slots into. So this will be my Necromancer. What else? We've then got... Okay, these 5 models here, they are called the Faded. I'm not exactly sure which Bestiarum set they're from. I've got no idea. I couldn't find them when I looked up at them. But they're like these... they're like tortured souls. Like sort of hell, denizens of hell, sort of people that have been sent down to hell for eternal punishment. That's what these things are. I think there's 10 different poses. I printed out 5, and I'm planning to use these as shadows because I don't really have any miniatures or even any files that kind of go with your sort of what you think like normal shadow creatures are supposed to be. I mean, I suppose I could proxy something, but I thought, you know what? These look pretty cool. I think shadows are supposed to fly in the game, but these guys will do. And I'm just going to do these as like a black, a very dark finish. So yeah, there's 5 of these guys. And these are going to go on 25mm bases. So yeah, they're like tortured souls. Really nice little figures, and can be. I think these figures have got a wide range of use in all kinds of armies. I mean, at a pinch, they could definitely be zombies. Connection points aren't very big, so I'm not going to be able to pin these. So I'm going to have to rely on the strength of glue to fix these to the bases. What else do we have? Okay, at the top here with the wood bases that they're going to go on, these are Mournwraiths, and I've printed out 6 of these, and these are from the Covenant of Grief set. Now, in the set, you get two types. You have pre-posed, which are sort of fully assembled one-piece models, but you also have the files for separate bodies, separate arms, so you can actually come up with a lot of different variations. So I'm thinking that these, not 100% sure exactly what I'm going to be doing for these yet in terms of whether they're going to be ghosts or spectres. Later on when we do the video, as I create my warband, I'll then decide what they're going to represent. But I'm thinking that there are some differences in the design that could allow me to use these for two different things. So for example, we've got sort of a general... Again, these will look a lot better once they're primed. But you've got sort of a general sort of spirit-like thing that could very easily be used as a ghost. Oops. Lucky I used tough resin now, isn't it? But you've also got ones that have, come on, focus, that have weapons. Some of them have, like, they're fixed to crosses. These possibly could represent spectres, maybe. So there's a variety in how they look. They're not all just the same thing with different weapons or different heads. There are actually some very distinct looks amongst them. And as I say, there are, you can get, I mean, I just printed out the single piece models, the single piece versions, but you can print out different parts, different arms, different bodies, different heads, and do your own thing. But I printed out 6 of these. I'm planning to use these as ghosts and or spectres. What's next? Okay, next. Okay, this is a lovely model, but it took me 2 attempts to print this. This is the Banshee. And the Banshee is also from the Covenant of Grief set. It's a very complex model. My printer didn't like the pre-support that came, so I had to support up the pre-support. I had to add a load of supports to the pre-support, but this is the Banshee. Look at all that hair. Now I'm thinking that I might do the hair orange. Because again, if I remember correctly, the Banshee is quite prominent in sort of Celt and Irish folklore, so, red hair. I'm thinking, possibly. But yeah, this is a really nice one. Now, the one that went wrong, I've got 2 bits left. This is supposed to be at the front. This is supposed to wrap around the body and come up, but it pancaked. And then the remains of the body, yeah, not a lot left. The head disappeared. Yeah, and everything else kind of disappeared. So what I'm thinking of doing is maybe just using this to sort of test what I'm thinking of using in terms of painting the scheme. So I'm probably going to use this as the test piece to make sure that what I'm thinking of doing in terms of painting these will actually work. So we've got models for shadows, we've got models for spectres and ghosts, we've got a Banshee, if my warband ever gets far enough to recruit one, and the last 2 figures are a little bit different, a little bit strange. These are Ossificators, and these are from the Eternal Legions set. I think it's the Eternal Legions Part 2 set. Now, when I saw these in terms of the picture that came in the file, they looked like spirits. They looked sort of spirit creatures. But once I printed them out, I realized that they're not actually spirits. Let me show you what I mean. You see, the base has all these ghostly skulls coming out. Right? So you see this, and then you see... I won't focus. Then you see this thing coming out above it, and you think, oh yeah, that's some kind of wraith or some kind of spirit creature, yeah? No, look. It's got like an insectoid butt. It's like half centipede, half skeleton thing. So it's not, I mean, again, and then it goes onto the base like this, and you've got the whole screaming skulls, and I don't know, I think it's supposed to be a skeleton mage, maybe, like a lich, possibly. But yeah, because like I say, when I saw the render, when I saw the picture, I didn't actually see the insect part. I just saw it like this, so I thought, oh, that's a nice looking spirit with all these skulls, screaming skulls. That would be good as a wraith, maybe. But yeah, it's a bug. So what I might do, I think I'm still going to use these as wraiths, I think. But I'm going to kind of paint it up as if it's not a wraith as well. I'm going to try and come up with a paint scheme so that it can represent a wraith, but it can also represent what I think it's supposed to be. A skeleton bug hybrid thing with screaming skulls. So yeah, I printed out 2 of these. I think there's 3 in the set, but I printed out 2. And yeah, those are the miniatures that I'm going to be painting up for my Deth Wizards warband. So yeah, I've got a lot of work ahead of me. I've got to base all of these. I've already started pinning these things. I've put pins into the bottom of these models ready to fix to the base. These guys, again, there's not enough space on the bottom of the foot to actually pin these guys, so I'm going to have to rely on the glue. So at the moment I'm kind of debating whether to use super glue gel or epoxy resin. I'm not too sure. This one I'll just use super glue gel because it's a nice snug fit on the base. And these ones, the Banshee and the 2, what are they called? Ossificators. I think I'm going to paint these separate from the bases because it's just going to be so hard to paint them when they're all assembled together. So yeah, these are the miniatures that I have printed, ready for paint and ready to use in the upcoming Deth Wizards campaign. Right, we are back at last. I know it hasn't been long for you guys, but the time between the printing and actually getting these things finished painting, yeah, it's been a little while. I am pretty much acknowledged as one of the world's slowest painters, but my undead from Bestiarum are now complete and they are ready for us to begin our Deth Wizards games. However, in this video, as well as showing you the painted figures, I'll also highlight maybe where they could be used in maybe some other sort of miniature games. So what we have here are the miniatures that I printed out earlier in the video. I've tried to keep a level of consistency in terms of the colours I've used, although obviously they're not all the same. I haven't painted them all like sort of spirits or ghosts. I have actually painted them a different way where I thought the miniatures required it. And as I mentioned earlier, all of these miniatures are from Bestiarum. I've highlighted which ones they are and what sets they've come from earlier in the video. But let's take a look and see what we've got and how badly I've painted them. So we're starting with the Dread Necromancer. So for this guy, I gave him an undercoat of sort of a mid-grey. I then gave him a black future wash to kind of really sort of bring out the shadows and the depths in the cloak and the everything else and the bones. I then used I think 3 grey dry brushes. Storm Grey, Rain Grey and Cadet Grey. I think they're all sort of craft paints. But I think I mentioned a long time ago on a hobby table episode, I was out of the hobby for a long time because of real life and work. And a lot of my paints basically couldn't be used anymore when I came back into the hobby. So I've had to replenish my stocks bit by bit. I can't afford the big army painter sets, unfortunately. I would love to get the big speed paint set and the fanatic sets, but I just can't afford them. So craft paints is what we have to make do with when we can't have the normal paints, the good paints. What else? The bones, including like the crown, which is made of bones here, I gave a white base coat and then I used like a wood stain. I currently use a Minwax Cherry shade. It seems to give a good representation of bones. Now, some of them on the very sort of top level, I did actually do a very light white dry brush just on the top parts, the parts that would be exposed to the top light kind of thing. What else? Flesh, I used a pallid bone for the flesh areas. And then for the wood, there's not a lot of wood on here that I decided to paint as wood. I just used hardened leather. So yeah, this is the Dread Necromancer. Now this guy is actually fairly large in terms of height. I didn't realise how big he was actually when I printed him out. And I printed him out at 100%. Let me just quickly grab a normal figure so you can see how big he is. Right, so I have a figure from Artisan Guild that I painted up on the channel recently. And okay, you can see I'm trying to put the top of the base level. You can see how much, it's like head and shoulders above, sort of like a normal human size. Yeah, I've actually got the flash on. For some reason, then when I used my camera like normal, for some reason the orange was just too bright. So I actually turned on the sort of camera light for this filming. So it may not give a true representation, but at least the orange doesn't look quite so bright. Right, so that is the Dread Necromancer. Now, I also printed out 5, I think they're called faded models by Bestiarum, and I'm using these to represent shadows. Now, if you look at games like D&D, yeah, boo, hiss, shadows are normally represented as kind of like winged spirits, I think, sort of black winged spirits. Well, I decided to go a little sort of on a different path for the shadows. So I've basically done these as, again, very dark. I didn't want to do black because I'm not very good at highlighting pure black. So I decided to go for this kind of light highlights, light dry brush for the highlights. So for these guys, very simple paint scheme. I did the normal sort of undercoat of white for these guys because I was going to give them a complete covering of grim black by the Army Painter Speed Paints. And then I did the 3 grey dry brush, the Storm Grey, Rain Grey, and Cadet Grey, and then a very light final dry brush right at the top edges in white. And I think they look pretty decent. And I think they'll do as representations of shadows in the game. Again, I think the faded come with like 10 different poses. And again, I honestly can't remember which set they're from because I can't find them. I can't find them on my mini factory, but they are there. But yeah, the faded, in Deth Wizards, I'm planning to use these as shadows. Age of Sigmar, you could probably use these as revenants, harridans, or stalkers. Kings of War, zombies, possibly with a different paint scheme. Ghouls, again with a different paint scheme. Doppelgangers, possibly with this scheme. And then 1-page rules, possibly as a variation on the Ghost Swarm or Horde, possibly. Again, maybe you want to paint them the way that I've painted my Ghosts and Spectres, maybe. But yeah, I think these figures could be used in a number of different games. All right, what's next? Well, next we have Mournwraiths. And I printed out 6 Mournwraiths, 4 at the bottom here and then 2 at the back. Now, the 2 at the back are mounted on these large crosses or sort of crucifixes. And in the 3D printing set, in the STL files, you've actually got options for one-piece prints like these, or you can print out separate modular sort of bodies and arms and everything else. So you can really sort of mix and match, what gets to be represented here. And the way that I'm looking at this is, in terms of the Mournwraiths, I'm going to be using these as either spectres or ghosts, and I'm thinking that the ones with the crosses will probably be the spectres, and the ones without the crosses will probably be ghosts. Or it may be the other way around, because I think the ghosts have a higher rating, so I may have less of those. We'll see. When I start playing the game and creating my warband, I'll make the decision then. But yes, basically I'm going to be using the ones without the crosses as one type of spirit, and the 2 with the crosses as another type of spirit. Now, again, these can be used in different games. Oops, let go. These can be used as different troop types in different games. Come on. Yes, there you go. But again, I'm going to be using them as ghosts or spectres. I think in Age of Sigmar, they could possibly represent revenants, hordes, or Mirmorns. Possibly banshees, if you've got one like this, which doesn't have weapons and has sort of a female appearance, possibly used as a banshee. Krulgast Cruciators could possibly be the ones with the crosses, I reckon. Kings of War, they could be used as Wraiths, one-page rules, Banshees, Revenants, or again, Wraiths. Now again, for these guys, I did the bones and the skeletons the same way as I did on the Necromancer. Sort of a white undercoat for these, and then I did a Minwax, where is it? Minwax Cherry Shade just onto the skeleton, and that's it. I haven't done any other highlighting on the bones or anything, and it's just the wood stain. That's it. For the ghosts themselves, okay, on the camera they look a little bit dark. They're not actually this dark in real life. Maybe they look a little bit lighter further away. Nah, not really. Again, the camera lighting and colours don't always represent reality. Like for example, the orange that you're seeing here on the Banshee that we'll look at in a little while, it's not that vibrant in real life. I wish it was, but it's not. But yeah, for the sort of ghostly appearance, it's a lot lighter than what it looks like on the camera. And how did I do this? Hang on one second. I did white undercoat, and then we did Plasmatic Bolt, which is from Army Painter Speed Paints, and Speed Paint Medium, a 50-50 mix, half and half, of Plasmatic Bolt and Speed Paint Medium, and that was it. Also, I did a light white dry brush afterwards, that's it. But again, they're actually lighter in colour in real life. The camera's making them look a little bit darker. I might take some pictures. Maybe the pictures will give a better representation of what they actually look like, because the camera lies. So yeah, you've got different designs of these that you can print out, because like I say, they do have a selection of single piece STLs that you can just print out, and that's what these are. Come on, focus, there you go. Or you can print out separate parts and really go to town coming up with your own unique creations. I could have done the rock on the back differently, but I just decided to paint it ghost-like. What else is there? Oh, this one I quite like. This one was a bit of a painter paint. Lots of little nooks and crannies. So this ghost has like a wheel, and on the wheel has this kind of tortured skeleton creature. Again, the colours. The rope is not really that bright. The rope is much more subdued in real life, but the camera's making it look really good, really bright. Again, I had to use the I don't normally use the light on the camera when I do these sort of videos, but for these guys with the colours, I think I kind of had to. It brought it down a little bit, but it's not giving a very good representation. Oh, okay, might have to tidy that part up. There's a little bit too much white on the arm there, but I might need to touch that up. Now, I do have to be a little bit careful touching these guys because I haven't actually varnished them yet. Over here, I have had occasions where when I spray them with varnish, they go all misty. I think it's the humidity and the heat. So I want to kind of do this video with these guys in their finished state, if just in case the varnish goes, goes all misty and foggy, which, like I say, has happened before. I remember assembling and painting a platoon or a unit of 172 Shermans for a World War II game. Yeah, painted them up really nicely, did some nice sort of edging, sprayed them with varnish, and then it was all winter camo. Right, so we've had the faded, which is going to be my shadows. We've looked at the Necromancer. We've looked at the Mournwraiths. We've got 3 more miniatures to look at here. Let's start with these two. Now, these two are the Ossificators. Again, look back earlier in the video to detail where these guys actually came from. They came from a different set to the others. And I don't think they're actually supposed to be spirits. When I looked at the sort of renders, come on, focus. There you go. When I looked at the renders, I really thought these guys could be used as spirits, because that's kind of what I saw. I saw the skeleton, I saw some kind of body trailing away, and then you've got this sort of screaming skulls coming out. And I honestly thought that this screaming skulls were kind of attached to the body of this skeleton, was like the tail of this skeleton kind of thing, the bottom sort of spreading out in skulls, but it's not. I think I mentioned this earlier in the video. It's actually like an insect body. Sort of a very weird kind of design, but I thought, you know what, I can still use these. But I didn't paint them up as spirits. I painted them up as kind of like a normal sort of undead. So again, for the bones and the body, I undercoated white. And then I use the Minwax Cherry Shade, and that's it. Again, that's my recipe for doing kind of bones. The bones or the skulls in this sort of spirit skull swarm, I did actually do the same thing, but I did do some white dry brushing highlights afterwards. Now the lower body, again, you've got the bones as the sort of crest here, but inside is I used dark wood army painter for the main sort of body. The mandibles, I don't know whether you can see the mandibles are at the bottom there. And the sort of legs, I dry brushed onto the dark wood, burnt sienna, gingerbread, and light timberline green to sort of make them a little bit more obvious. And then the cloaks, I did base color was Absolution Green by Army Painter Speed Paints. And then I did highlights in Kelly Green, Leaf Green, and light timberline green, which again are craft paints because I can't afford a lot of good paints. But yeah, so these ones look really impressive. I'm not too sure whether they fit the sort of spirit aesthetic that I'm going... Oop, did I move the camera? Sorry about that. I don't know whether these fit the aesthetic of the spirit horde as much as I would have liked, but I didn't really want to... Come on, focus. Doesn't want to focus, does he? He's not focusing. There you go. But, you know, these are going to actually represent my wraiths. I was kind of looking through the files that I had, and I was trying to figure out which ones I could use as wraiths. I mean, I could possibly have used, focus, some Mournwraiths, but maybe sort of painted them a much darker colour to represent wraiths. But I kind of wanted a bit more variety, so, focus, there you go. So I wanted these guys to represent my wraiths in Deth Wizards. In Age of Sigmar, these could possibly be used as Guardian of Souls or Hex Wraiths, I think. Kings of War, Wights. One-page rules, Wraiths, or possibly Knights. But yeah, I really do like these models, even though they are insectile rather than spirits. I really do like them. And I think they kind of fit. I think they kind of fit the warband. So I printed out 2 of the 3 designs that were available. This is the second one. Now this one shows a bit more of like a mage kind of character. He's got sort of flames coming out. Now I did the flames the same way as I painted the ghost bodies, and again it looks a lot darker on camera. It's not that dark in real life. Again, I'll see if I can take some sort of photos so you can see sort of what it really looks like. I kind of like the way that the cloak turned out, but it's a very different style to the rest of the minis, so I'm not too sure whether it kind of stands out like a sore thumb. But actually, that's the way that I used to kind of paint before I really sort of used speed paints. But again, I really like. But again, I mistook this as being a spirit creature, not an insectile centaur thing. But I like the base especially. Right, we have one more miniature to look at. And that is the big orange one. The big red head over here, the Banshee. And I think this is possibly my favourite figure out of the set. Not in terms of painting, but in terms of the sculpt. Really is an awesome miniature. Just look at all that hair. Yeah, that took a while to do. And this is going to be my Banshee. In other games, obviously, you can use it as a Banshee. Age of Sigmar, I think they're called Tomb Banshees. I think one-page rules, they're called Ancient Banshees. But this is definitely a miniature. Let me move my thumb out of the way. Definitely a miniature that you can use. Now, my dry brushing isn't the greatest, but it's good enough for the table. What did I do in terms of paint for this one? For this one, white undercoat, the hair, I used a base of Fire Giant Orange, Army Painter Speed Paint. And I highlighted with Bittersweet Orange, which again is a craft paint that I have. Just gives it a little bit more definition. But I didn't dry brush that. I actually painted that on hair by hair. Yeah, don't ask. And like I say, as I was doing these, I realised my dry brushing isn't that good. So I didn't want to ruin the hair. What else? The skin and clothes was done exactly the same as the Mournwraiths, as my ghosts and spectres. So it was plasmatic bolt and speed paint medium, 50-50 mix. And then highlighted with a dry brush of white. But again, my dry brushing needs a lot more practice, I think. From a distance, it looks a lot better. Off camera, it looks a lot better. The camera's picking up every little, every little nook and cranny, every little shade, every little piece of texture. It's picking everything up. In real life, I don't think it looks quite that bad, but, you know, the camera never lies, I suppose. So this is my miniatures. Again, I think I've moved the camera. Let's move this down a little bit. There you go. Right. So these are the miniatures that I'm going to be using for Deth Wizards, for my Necromancer's warband. I'm going to be using a Spirit Caller. So the Necromancer here is going to be representing a Spirit Caller. And from these miniatures, I've kind of tried to prepare for future upgrades to the warband in terms of recruiting more types of followers, more minions. So I've kind of planned for the future by painting more than I need at the start, because there's no way a starting warband you're going to have all of these miniatures. You know? I might have sort of 3 or 4, that's it, you know. But I'm kind of planning for the future as I play through the series. However, there is one thing that's now concerning me. My miniatures for the Undead and the Necromancer are done. I'm happy with those. They're tabletop standard. They're fine. I've also printed out the cards for the game, so sort of reference cards for the game. But there is one thing that I am a little bit worried about. And that's what we're going to be fighting. The heroes, the villagers that we could potentially find in the scenarios. And I've got to be honest, I'm a little bit overwhelmed with the amount I could possibly need. Now, they do say in the rulebook that you're going to need about 15 miniatures to represent the enemies. Well, that's not exactly true. If you roll the sort of maximum numbers, because in a number of scenarios you're rolling up a random number of enemies. If you roll up sort of the maximum, you could potentially need like 25 miniatures. If you use different miniatures to represent the different types of enemies, the different types of heroes. So in this game, you could have a maximum of 4 warriors in a scenario at any one time, 4 villagers, 4 wizards, 3 priests, 3 paladins, 3 rogues, 3 rangers, and 1 champion. Those are the maximums of each type that you could potentially find in a scenario. Now, you're not going to find them all at once. You may have, I think the first scenario is warriors and villagers, I think. But if you want to use, proper miniatures to represent each of those different enemy types, then this is what you're going to end up with. You're going to end up with like 25 different miniatures. Now, I don't have enough miniatures painted up of these types. Most of my miniatures are of kind of the evil races or the sort of evil factions, because that's where my sort of wargaming preferences lie, or where I sort of gravitate to in terms of choice of armies and choice of enemies. I normally pick like the evil the evil armies. So when a game requires us to have a whole bunch of sort of good representations, paladins and warriors and wizards and priests, I just don't have a lot of them painted. So I thought, I could possibly use my griffins, my confrontation griffins, but no, don't have enough. And then I thought, I've got Zombicide Black Plague. That has a bunch of minis. And it does. I actually have all these miniatures are actually from the Zombicide Black Plague box. And I've got enough. But, as you can see, they're not painted. I think I painted up a couple when I did my 5 Leagues from the Borderlands warband. I think I used a couple in my 5 Leagues warband. But again, you see, I've labelled each of them because I'm kind of thinking, should I use them as they are here? Unpainted. I might prime them, I suppose. Because the thing is, if I have to paint all of these, I don't know when I'm going to be able to start the series. For the first scenario, I'm going to need warriors and villagers, and I think I have to roll randomly. So I may not need to paint them all, but I've got other things that I want to paint for, and my painting is so slow. It's glacial. Is that the right word to use? I am such a slow painter. So if I paint these for the Deth Wizards series, it's going to take a long time, and the video production is going to suffer in terms of the frequency, because I'm going to be waiting to get the figures all painted up. And I'm not going to be able to paint up figures for other things. I've got another 3, I think, miniature games that I want to prepare for. And again, because of my painting speed, it's going to take a long time. Anyway, So I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to have to decide whether to leave these guys as they are and just have them like this on the tabletop, which isn't going to look very nice. But, you know, it's what a lot of people do, you know, in the privacy of their own homes. Or whether I spend time painting them. Okay, so here's the thing. I know that I could probably finish them quicker if I just speed paint and that's it. Yeah, no highlighting, no sort of going and touching up. If I literally just prime and then just blob on a whole bunch of speed paints, I could probably finish them quickly. But I kind of have this thing where I don't like quickly painted figures that ain't to my level of satisfaction. I mean, my undead that I just showed you, they're not pro level, they're not great level by any stretch of the imagination, but they're at a level that I can accept and I can use. If I just blob a whole bunch of speed paints on these and then sort of say that's it, I'm going to have this kind of, I don't know, what is it OCD? I'm not going to like it, you know what I mean? So I've got a decision to make. Do I just continue with these unpainted figures but with labels on them? Or do I paint up what's needed for each scenario as I need them and hope the dice roll low in terms of quantity? I'm gonna have to think about that. Anyway, you saw the undead, you saw the figures that I printed out from Bestiarum. These ones are from Zombicide. But hopefully you enjoyed the video. Again, my painting isn't of the greatest quality. But yeah, it's good enough for me. It's good enough for the tabletop. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching. I will see you in the next video as I figure out what to do with these and start working on the Deth Wizards series. So until the next video, take care, stay safe. Cheers.